Through Kansas, got to see some interesting things. Had some great hospitality last night. Really happy to be here. So I'm going to be talking today about some ideas that may have at one point in time been more widely known and accepted amongst the fraternity. It's something that's kind of become a little bit lost within the consciousness of the general consciousness of the brothers in Freemasonry, and hopefully a discussion of some of these esoteric ideas will enrich your appreciation for some of the symbolism within craft masonry itself, as well as within other bodies like the Scottish Rite. Principally today I'm going to be talking about the ideas of alchemy and Kabbalah and how these may relate to Freemasonry. And I'm going to start off by talking about alchemy, and then I'm going to show how it relates to Kabbalah. And alchemy, of course, is the precursor of chemistry, and Kabbalah is the Jewish mystical system, both of which have ancient origins. Some believe that they may both, in fact, go all the way back to some of the mystery traditions of Egypt and Greece. We certainly know that the word alchemy itself comes from alchem, which means from the land of Chem, or Kemet, which was Egypt. And this is also where the word chemistry comes from. A lot of the founders of the Royal Society in Great Britain were actively involved in the study of alchemy and Kabbalah, including people like Sir Isaac Newton. And of course, we look to Masonic historians have been quick to look at some of these connections with the association with the craft. However, we also find the symbolism associated with these ideas on the very cathedrals themselves. So if we try to trace Freemasonry back to the actual cathedrals of France, in Europe, Notre Dame, places like Chartres Cathedral, they actually have depictions of alchemical processes on them. Most people don't know that. And of course, some try to trace the lineage of Freemasonry back to groups like the Knights Templar, who we also know were dabbling in some of these ideas, may have come in contact with some of the Islamic traditions in the Holy Land, and learned the ideas of alchemy there, as they were the custodians of a lot of the Greek texts on the subject. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to talk about what this setup is here. I have this front table that I'm sure none of you are used to seeing at a Masonic function. And then I'm going to talk about how this relates directly to Freemasonry, at least in my opinion, of some others. I will say that these ideas that I'm talking about aren't necessarily new. They're things that writers like Albert Pike alluded to in his writings. You certainly find the ideas alluded to in texts like Morals and Dogma and Esoterica. I first learned of them from my grandfather, who was a brother, Hugh Warren, who taught chemistry at Denver University, and it was something that had been passed down in my family. My great-great-great-grandfather was General Joseph Warren, who was a physician and alchemist who fought at the Battle of Bunker Hill. So, and this was something that apparently was taught even back then. So, what do we have here? What I have set up is a basic distillation apparatus. The alchemical philosophy was concerned with taking something of a lesser valued nature, removing the impurities, and transmuting it into something of greater value. When we say that in Masonry we learn to subdue our passions and improve ourselves in Masonry, that's a form of transmutation. We're talking about removing certain impurities, elevating ourselves to a higher state. That was the idea behind alchemy. The alchemists believed that everything was connected to a certain degree within consciousness, and they all followed certain rules. And if you understood the rules of nature, you could in turn elevate nature to its most perfect form. So, the chemistry of early alchemy was involved of searching nature out, finding herbs, and trying to transmute them into elixirs, which could be medicines, taking metals, transmuting them into higher states. Everyone's familiar with the idea of turning lead into gold, that type of idea associated with alchemy. The whole basis was, as well as being a lab technique, was also a metaphor for the transmutation of the alchemists working on the process and the transmutation of nature. When we talk about taking a brother and represented as a rough ashlar and breaking off the corner of that rough stone in order to more perfectly fit it for the builder's use. Again, that was an idea associated with alchemy in terms of perfecting it through the heat of the action of the gavel of will. So the alchemists would go out in nature. The alchemists recognized that there were 7 planets of antiquity. They ruled the 7 days of the week. They ruled the 7 noble metals. They ruled the 7 liberal arts and sciences. And these 7 planets, because they ruled different herbs, if